I think that's the biggest worry. I mean, the biggest worry is that China, they put a wrench in the supply chain here, going into Apple's biggest product cycle ever with the 3 phones coming out in the next 3 to 6 months. This iPhone super cycle that it used to be, now we'll just call it a strong product cycle, depends on that supply chain. You know, we've estimated probably 100 to 150 million of cost could increase, which would still be a rounding error for Apple. So it's not a cost perspective. The worry is from that supply chain perspective. As of now, I think it's more of a scary headline than a reality, but that's what investors are concerned about.
About a slowdown in production and supply, hence, not because of squeezed margins, because costs are going to go up.
Yeah, because ultimately, if that gets delayed, demand gets delayed, and ultimately you look at that cycle, you look at numbers for the street, that gets delayed. And I think right here, in terms of the Chinese demand, called 60 to 70 million Chinese iPhones coming out for renewal in the next 12 to 18 months, that is key to this, you know, strong product cycle for Apple. It's really right now about the supply chain. It's a game of poker. And does China start to do they put a wrench into that Foxconn food chain? As of now, part of why Cook's been a pseudo-ambassador between this is because Apple, as opposed to any of the other FANG names, which really have de minimis revenue and, you know, what I would say exposure, Apple is heavily invested here and needs to make sure there's no issue.
How much, if they mess with Apple and the supply chain, how much do they end up hurting themselves and their own workers?
Well, that's fundamentally our thesis, and I think many on the street, is that there could be talk, but they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. Given the Foxconn situation, how much that employs within China, as well as Apple and Cook have been the one American company which have had the olive branch out there. So that's why I think it would be definitely stepping over the line by many if they mess with that.
Is there a sort of drop-dead date? I mean, taking a look at when they want to launch these phones, when the components need to get into the country in order for the phones, for there to be a ramp in production, is it August? Is it July?
Yeah, it's really late July.
So it's 1 month from now,
Yeah, so really in a month, you'll start to have through the supply chain. And we've also been there before with the boy that cried wolf on the supply chain, some, you know, what I'd say information that wasn't that correct. But in the next month, as long as there's no issues, I think it's a coast clear. Unless you start to see things come out of China, things get delayed, that could really impact Apple, especially on the OLED side, in terms of some of these production.
Do you then take down
issues.
your estimates? Do you start looking at your numbers?
So I think if that happens is where you start to get a little more cautious. As of right now, everything we've seen from a supply chain, we are not seeing that, which is why we continue to pound the table on Apple. But that's something to watch out for as an Apple bull. Any issue, not on the demand side, but on the supply chain.
Let's talk Netflix. The stock hitting $400 for the first time today, Dan. You actually raised your price target to $500. Why? I mean, what's the catalyst? What's the next catalyst here? Yeah, I mean, look, in our opinion, this continues to be our top name, a table pounder. Really, it's because of the international subscriber story. I mean, 68 million today. We believe that's going to 100 million by mid-2020. It's a content arms race. Obviously, you've seen the consolidation media. They continue to be the top of the heap. And when you look at we believe about 90% of customers still willing to pay what I call another $2 to $3 price increase. The average customer is watching double Netflix over an Amazon or Hulu per week, 10 hours versus 5 based on our survey. So I look at numbers, I think it goes up another 10 to 15% in terms of street numbers. Multiple continue goes higher. That said, raising the $500, obviously, a lot of the nasty bears are coming out. You know, I've getting a lot of those emails. It comes down to, you look at the total addressable market, 700 million subs international. I think this is a stock that has a 5 in front of it 12 months from now.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.